welcome to this winter slash Christmas slash holiday slash whatever you want it to be Photopea coloring page activity. And since it's December and cold here, I'm going for a nice little winter image. I've got this coloring page from this 35 plus freeze Christmas coloring page from Mamoo's. So this would be a great place to go to get a picture to do. And for my purposes, I want us to incorporate a variety of things. So solid colors, patterns, gradients, lots of different stuff. But you could choose any one of the images that you like. Download it and open it in Photopea. So here is Photopea. And we're going to do a couple of different things to this. Now, you could start off with some easy things. Starting off, I would go through, I'm going to do all my little berries in red. So we would start off by using just a simple paint bucket, the fill tool. So you're going to locate your paint bucket tool, which hides under the gradient tool by pressing the letter G or locating the button. Click on the paint bucket, and then it's going to use whatever color you have on the top of your color picker here in Photopea. So I'm going to click on that, switch it over here to the reds, pick a nice red color, hit OK, and then now whenever I point to a filled in area with my paint bucket, it will fill it in with color. Now, if you don't think it's filling in enough, so let me zoom up on this. See, it's not quite filling in. I'm going to press Control Z to undo, go back to my paint bucket, and you can modify the tolerance. That's the pickiness, because some of this it's pixely. So I'm going to increase my tolerance so that it will fill in more. There. See, that's a lot better, I think. And I can go through and just fill in all of these. You can hold down the space bar at any time to pick up and scoot over like I just did there, and then let go with the space bar and continue on. And if there were other areas that I wanted to do here, I could continue on with that red. And there's a few. I'm going to go ahead and hit these here. So start off maybe with the easy ones, things that you all know that you just want to be a solid color and you're going to be happy with them. Like maybe these dots over here. I might go ahead and pick like an icy color here. And go ahead and knock out all of these. So that's like the most basic way to do a coloring page. You could do an entire coloring page with a fill bucket, but we're cooler than that, so we're going to do something a little bit fancier. But you can still come back at any point at the end and to your background layer, do fill bucket. And that's all going to be destructive, so that means you can't really undo it other than to paint over it, okay? Now the other things that we're going to do are going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to come up with something a little cooler for this top part. So up here I have this branch, and I want to put a pattern inside this branch, and I can't get a hold of all of it because it's not all one closed circle like these were. There's lines that it's going to run into it and won't go any further. And then you also have to watch out because like on the edge of this one there's a little bitty white gap. See that white gap right there? And if I were to try to fill in there, well, I'll just show you, it would fill in the whole page because there's a gap there. So if you have gaps, you're going to need to go to your background layer and zoom up close. And you're going to have to take a paintbrush and paint in that gap. So I'm going to grab my paintbrush tool. I'm going to make my brush little bitty, make it good and hard, and then go ahead and just paint that in. Oops, I need to choose black. So I'm going to click on the color box and then come click on the black part somewhere. And there we go. And you're just going to fill it in. It doesn't have to be perfect, but, it needs to be closed, okay? All right, and at this point, then I wouldn't run into that problem. But for this one, I don't want to use my paint bucket. I want to select it and then add something over top. So I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool, and it has a tolerance too. So if it's not picking up enough, you can increase that number. I'm going to go with 76. So I'm going to click here, and that got a hold of all of this, but see, it ran into a line. So I'm going to have to add more and make sure this is set to unite, which means it's going to add into the selection if I click again. Now I'm going to click here and here. And so what we're doing, see, is we're getting more and more of this until it runs into a problem. Like here it didn't get and here it didn't get. So you just kind of have to look and see until you get all of the pieces of the image. All right, there we go. I think that's everything. That looks about right. Now once you have everything, you could use your paint bucket and fill in at one time, but this time I'll show you a different way. So if you click on what looks like a little moon button at the bottom of the layers panel, that's the adjustment layer button, and the top three are three that we can use here for this project. Color fill does just like we did with the paint bucket, except it's on its own layer and you can still change the color later. And probably for solid colors, you're just going to use the paint bucket. Gradient fill is going to use a gradient to fill it in, and I'll do that with one of my little snowflakes in a minute. And then pattern fill is how you can fill in with a pattern. Now there's some patterns built in. When you click on pattern fill, this will pop up in the properties panel, and you can choose some different patterns. I have one in here that has, I don't know what that is, little flowers it looks like on there. So I'm just going to use that one. And you can hit the scale button to scale it down. See, then the pattern is littler. It's kind of hard to see, but the little flowers are in there. And I'm making it even smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, that looks good. And see, this is now on its own layer, so you can actually turn it off or hide it if you wanted to. Now, each thing that you do, you're going to come back and click on your background layer. If you don't click back on your background layer, you're not going to be able to select things. So I'm back on my background layer. I'm going to use my magic wand again. This time I'm going to do this snowflake and this snowflake, so be sure you're on your night still. Actually, I'll do all three of these that are the same. And I'll do a gradient with these. So I'm going to click on the adjustment layer button and go to the top to gradient fill. And then in here is the gradient, but that's pretty ugly. I really don't want that black and white going on there. So let's go ahead and click on that. And then you can set your colors, and that's the bottom boxes. So that's black. I'm going to set it to a greenish color to match those little balls. And then I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to click on the other box and choose a maybe lighter color in that same pattern, kind of, and hit OK. Now, here's the problem with this one is it's all in one layer. So unfortunately, we can't really see it. And that's probably not what we're going to want. So if you do a bunch at one time, this isn't going to work out well for you, because even when you scale it down, it's just going to disappear. So you can see how it's getting part of it and not the other. So unfortunately, it's not the best bet for most of these. So let me choose one separately so I can better explain what's going on here. But if you're doing a pattern, you can do multiples. Gradient, yeah, not so much. So let's drag it to the trash can. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to choose one. So there we go. Down here to gradient fill, back into here. Again, choose your colors with your color boxes, however you want them to be. Now you can see that one's taking shape up there. See, right here. But it's not really cool looking. It's like linear. It's going from one side to the other. So we'll click OK. And I like a radial where it goes like sun, inside out. See, that's cool. So there we go. And again, you can reverse it if you want it to be darker on the outside or whatever. And you can still scale it so you decide how that gradient operates. All right, that looks good. And again, you can kind of just repeat this process for all the things that you want to do. One last step I want to show you is how we can take a pattern from somewhere online and pop it into one of the shapes, because that's kind of fun. So let's say I want to use this, this little star looking shape here at the top. And I've just gone off and typed in like winter patterns. Okay, and you can just click on any winter pattern. I'm going to choose this one here and hit copy. And then you're going to go to Photopea and edit and paste. And again, make sure you're on your background layer so it'll paste right above it. Now we need our transform because we need to transform this down. So edit free transform to give us some handles. And then we can grab a hold and make it smaller. I like to just make these just big enough to cover whatever it is I'm trying to do, because I find that to be the easiest way. And then there's not so much that's like bothering me. Okay. Now, if you wanted a bigger part of this pattern, because we just pasted it in there, technically you could erase around it a little bit. Like I could grab an eraser tool and make it bigger. I'm just using my big bracket, and I could just erase some of this so that I don't have all of it to contend with here. But we're going to snap it into the picture here. Okay, so all we have to do is click back on the background and use your magic wand again. But this time, turn your layer back on. See, it's above it. I'm going to name this layer Snowflake Pattern. And then just click your layer mask button. And what it will do is it will hide everything that's not inside the marching ants. So this is on the bottom. It's the little square with the circle. And there we go. And I could repeat this process over and over again. I could have copied that before I did this. And this one you could technically do in more than one at a time. So like if I paste this back in here again, oops, let me click back on my background layer, which I did not do. Okay, I'm going to paste it again. It's the same big one. And then I'm going to go back up and free transform again. But what I could do is put this like on the bottom half down here, let's say. Okay, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to call it big pattern. Okay, I'm going to turn it off, come to this background, and then I'm going to go ahead and pick all the things I want to be using that pattern. Now it's going to be using the big version, and they're all using just a different part based on what I have selected. So now I got all these little marching ants everywhere. They're going to look a little different, but that's kind of cool anyway. Click back on the patterny layer and add the layer mask. And now I kind of have different little patterns in each one. So that's lots of different ways to do this. You could also bring in things and clipping mask them in, but for the purpose of this, because we're just kind of doing a coloring page, I feel like this is kind of the easiest way to do it. Now, if you do decide to fill in your background with a darker color or whatever, like if I want it to kind of have a midnight kind of feel, like I go in here and get this darker blue. Remember, you're going to have to get in all the little teeny tiny pieces whenever you use your paint bucket. So like I got my paint bucket here, I've got my dark color, I'm on my background, but when I click, see, you're going to still have little pieces that you're going to have to go in and fix. And if you can't grab a hold of them, you may have to zoom up from time to time to get in there. All right. And that is basically, oops, that's the wrong one. Undo, Control Z. But that's basically how you do it. You would continue on with that process until you're happy with your finished project. So add patterns, add gradients, slap in some images, and they don't have to be patterns. They could just be, you know, if I want a wood background to be on something, or if I want this to look like an actual Christmas tree type of thing, I could get a pattern of just like tree branches or something like that and paste it in. It doesn't really have to be a winter pattern or whatever. So I'm going to pause this and then show you a finished one. And then I'm going to add my name on a top layer just drawn in a brush. All right, here is my finished document. It's really not that many layers. I did quite a bit of work on the background, and then here's all the other layers. So once you're finished, click on your very topmost layer and press the New Layer button in the bottom right-hand corner of the Layers panel. And this is going to be for your name or your initials or whatever. You're going to sign off on your artwork, right? So I'm going to take my magnifying glass and zoom up really good on my corner. You pick any corner. Grab my paintbrush tool. And you could certainly choose, you know, there's a bunch of different paintbrush styles in here. So if you wanted to choose something, you know, a little different, I guess you could. But you're going to want a small brush. So like 1 or 2 or something little. And you're just going to put your name. I would just, you know, you're supposed to sign it, right? So like cursive. And choose a color. And I'm going to choose like kind of a gray. I don't want it to be straight up white. So I'm going to hit OK. Again, be sure you're on your layer. And then just kind of pop your name in there. I'm using kind of a funky brush, so it doesn't really show up that great. I probably should have just used a regular brush, but anyway, all right, so there we go. There's my name. Now, it looks kind of bad when you're zoomed up really close, so to see what it looks like at regular size, go to View, and then go pixel to pixel. That's the actual size that it is. So you can press Control 0 to fit it on the screen just so you can see what the whole thing looks like, but there you go. And again, I used a really bad brush, so I probably would use just a regular brush to do that. And that's it. If you wanted to turn this in someplace, obviously you would need to export this out. I like to export as JPEGs, or if you're uploading it somewhere, a PDF file is always good as well. And that's it. I hope you had fun.